everybody, this is Julia.
And this is Chris, and this is episode number 39 of Mixology Talk Podcast.
So this week, we thought we'd go over some of the laws that bartenders and cocktail enthusiasts might want to be aware of as you go about your daily life. Because, frankly, you interact a lot with alcohol, and there's a lot of laws about alcohol.
Yeah, and just fair warning, all the information in this podcast was found on the internet, so you know it's true. But we definitely did not enlist any lawyers to confirm the validity of what we're saying. So
definitely
take it with a grain of salt.
Definitely take it with a grain of salt. A lot of what we say below is going to depend heavily on what state or country you're in. Most of what we say is based on information in the United States, but I know that the laws vary widely across the world. We're going to give you some food for thought on things that you may want to think about looking into laws for, but wherever you are, definitely verify before you take any chances.
So yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into it.
Let's get into it.
So the first thing is that you should not buy or sell alcohol on Craigslist.
I have seen listings for alcohol on Craigslist, which I've seen folks who work parties, and there was lots and lots of open bottles of wine. They're totally still good, and they're trying to sell it on Craigslist. I hate to break it to you, totally illegal.
Such a bad idea, too.
It's a bad idea.
You don't know. In the parking lot, I got a case of Chateauneuf to pop for you.
I got some good stuff, exactly. So I hate to break it to you. It may be a great deal, but it's just not a great idea.
No, definitely. You should definitely avoid Craigslist when you're making your alcohol purchases.
Yeah, and this goes for anything. I think I read a story on Reddit recently of a guy walking into a bar and selling a handle of something, I think it was Kettle One, to the bartender for like $10, and the bartender was excited because he got a good deal. That whole thing, not a good idea. Don't do that.
So you mean there's other things other than cat videos and pictures on Reddit?
Yes, there are. Huh. Deep in the bartenders subreddit.
Oh, wow.
That's where I found that one. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was just full of cat pictures.
Yeah. Well, we do. I know you like your cat pictures. So the next thing is something you may not think about. If you're planning a private party, and this is probably more for cocktail enthusiasts, because I know, I don't know about you, but I love to throw parties with awesome cocktails. And sometimes when you have awesome cocktails, it can cost a lot of money to buy the ingredients, and you may be tempted to charge for those cocktails or to charge an entrance fee. Hate to break it to you.
Totally against the law.
Not okay. Yeah, at that point where you're charging an entrance fee or you're actually charging for cocktails, you actually do need a liquor license. And I don't know about this, but you may need a liquor license for the location and even for yourself. So you may need to look into that.
Yeah, I can't remember who I was talking to, but we were talking about this exact thing and how you used to charge for little red cups at college.
Oh, that's funny.
Totally breaking the law.
So they're trying to get around it by charging for the cups.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Or an entrance fee or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you're charging in any way to get in.
Drink tickets.
Yep. It's the same thing. It's just, you're skirting the law for sure.
Well, and if you're charging an entrance fee, but you're in an establishment with a liquor license, go to town. Like, that should be fine.
Right.
And again, check with the location, check with the local jurisdiction. But for the most part, just keep this in mind if you're throwing a private party. Oh, and I should also mention, it can't be a public party. You can't just put signs in front of your house and say, come one, come all, even if the drinks are free. It needs to be a private guest list, at least in the state of California for that one.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about rent parties, too. Mm-hmm. Like, I need to make my rent the last couple days of the month, throw a big old party. Yeah, against the law. Great idea, though. Oh my God.
I know. I wasn't even thinking of it this way, because you think of a private party as a private party. I don't even think of it in the same sort of category as a bar, but you can get close. You can get close without realizing it.
Yeah, now here's another one that kind of speaks to me in my history, and that is...
I wrote this one in for a reason.
Yeah, don't infuse alcohol in your back seat. I wonder why this
is generally a bad idea. I don't know if I've told this story. It was one of our first dates, and we were driving around, and I kept hearing this weird sloshing sound. Yep. Turns out Chris was infusing... It must have been...
Gallons.
How many gallons? A dozen?
Probably about, yeah.
Oh, it was more than 10 gallons of vodka he was infusing with figs. I think it was in the very far back of his car, so I don't know if that's okay by open container laws, but right. It was so ridiculous. Like, just, this is a bad idea. It's also a terrible place to infuse.
Well, I had a good reason for it. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, it was. But yeah, I think it was like 5 gallons.
Yeah, it's bad
vodka.
For your infusion as well. Like, it'll definitely mix things up as you drive around.
I think that was the reasoning behind it.
Was it? Yeah. Laziness. But no, it's also going to be probably too hot. You're going to risk not keeping the temperature where you want it to be, and you definitely want to keep it covered, which, I don't know, if a cop pulls you over and he sees you've got a bunch of, like, covered up gallons of alcohol in your backseat, that's not going to go over well.
Right.
So
exactly.
I would recommend keeping your infusions at home or at work, not in between.
Don't do what I did, please. Don't do it.
So here's one I know that Chris is going to be super bummed to hear. And that is, depending on where you live, in the United States at least, it may not be legal for you to own a still, even if it's just for decoration. And now, I'm going to speak for myself here. I think some stills are absolutely gorgeous, especially the copper ones where they're super shiny, absolutely beautiful. And I could see somebody wanting to decorate their house like that. But in some places, it's illegal. So be careful.
Yeah, and I don't know which states there are, but I'm sure that could be frowned upon for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And there's I won't go into detail here because I'll be listing things forever depending on state by state laws. But in some places, you can own a still as long as you don't use it to distill anything. That's another sort of step on the spectrum. I know, you can just look at it. In other states, it's okay to own a still as long as you're only distilling alcohol for fuel purposes, which is interesting.
What
and I saw
fuel my desire
I knew
for a
you would
cocktail.
say that. I knew you would say that. And if you look at some, I will not name names, but one or two still manufacturers on their website gave instructions on how to apply for a fuel alcohol permit. But it was very tongue in cheek, and it was I don't know. It seemed to me like they were.
Yeah, so kind of like those head shops that sell cigarette rolling paper.
He's doing the air quotes.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. So just be careful, and if it's against the law, it's your call, but I would not recommend doing it. So
yeah.
So as far as stills go, you really want to look into it. In some states, it's fine to own them. I don't think it's okay to distill alcohol for consumption anywhere in the U.S., if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
without the appropriate licensing. That's the caveat.
Yeah, there may be some loopholes. I know I was talking to a couple people, and they said, like, home distillers. And I'm like, well, how does that even work? And they're like, they were under the impression that they could distill from home, but they can't sell it. Mm-hmm. So if you guys know the answer to that, definitely let us know.
And let us know what state you're in, because I know for sure this is a state-by-state matter. And again, just be really careful. Something else I want to mention here is, you can infuse all day long. You can brew beer all day long. But the moment you're distilling, you can go blind. Like,
yeah, you run some serious health risks, and it's not something you just kind of jump into.
Exactly.
There's some science behind it, and I would definitely recommend.
If you just go to town, distill a bunch of, I don't know, beer and drink what comes out the other end, you're in danger, serious danger. So there's a reason why they have these laws limiting the access of stills. It's for safety reasons. It's not just to be a party pooper, although there's probably some of that too.
Now, the other thing is that in California, you can't buy alcohol directly from the distillery,
which is sad.
Yeah, and there is some distilleries trying to get together to promote the health of their business by allowing people to buy at their distillery. And
they're trying to change that, yeah.
But I was talking to Brian Weber the other day. Actually, it was yesterday, from Bartender Journey. He just celebrated his 100th podcast, so definitely check that out.
Go say hi.
Yeah, and he just does a great podcast and very bartender focused. So if you're looking for something else to listen to, highly recommend Bartender Journey podcast. And he was saying that in New York, I want to say in January, they passed it so that distilleries in New York can sell cocktails, but they can only use products that were made in New York.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I'm just
kind of sneaky.
And kind of amazing. That's
awesome. I love it. So this is something that we learned, because in California, as of fairly recently, I want to say the last handful of years, you can taste booze in a distillery.
Yeah, I want to say it was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was pretty recently. So you can go and you can do tasting, just like a winery where you could do tasting. The difference is you can't actually buy what you've tasted. Yeah. And so we were talking with somebody who I will not name, and he was saying he was a distiller, and he was giving folks tastings, and naturally people were tasting and saying, oh my gosh, I want to buy this. And he would say, I'm not telling you this, but the gas station around the corner might have inventory. And because he can't actually tell you where to buy, and it's just kind of ridiculous if you think about it.
Yeah, it's kind of an old, antiquated law.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to alcohol, things don't move very quickly as far as legislation goes. You have a lot of really old laws still kind of on the books. So just be careful. And this is something I did not realize, but according to the internet, you don't need a bartender license to 10 bar in anywhere in the United States.
And this is definitely an issue of nomenclature, because what constitutes a bartending license is incredibly broad. But according to my research, nowhere in the United States are you required to have a special bartending license to bartend.
Now, I think in Las Vegas, you have to have a health card. And you may need to be like certified that you're not a criminal.
Well, but that's exactly the point. And that's why this is a little bit dicey when it comes to sort of naming conventions. Because if I'm not mistaken, Chris, you had to get a ServSafe certification to work in a restaurant. So you may need to get a certification that proves that you know how to handle food, because you're going to want to identify when food is bad. You're going to want to know how to keep food safe, how to keep it cold if it needs to be kept cold, and to cut yourself, don't get blood everywhere, basic sanitation stuff. But this is not specific to bartending, so it's not really a bartending certificate. So look in your local jurisdiction. You may need to get some sort of a certificate to be able to work in a restaurant or to work with food in general. But as far as I can tell, and let me know if I'm wrong, you don't need a specific bartending certificate.
That's what it was. In Vegas, you have to have a permit to serve alcohol, but that's for anybody that handles the alcohol. So if you're a server, if you're a cocktail waitress, if you're a bartender,
right,
you have to have that certification. It's not necessarily a bartender certification.
Which makes sense, because, that actually brings us to the next thing, which is, how do you know when to cut somebody off? This is something that I think I've always wondered about, because my understanding, and I'm actually looking at Chris because I'm asking him a question here. My understanding is the bartender is required to cut people off if they're too drunk. It's the law, right?
Right. Yeah, it is our responsibility. And at the end of the day, it kind of falls on our shoulder.
That's a lot of pressure.
It is. And the first couple months, you're usually kind of paranoid about that. And it should be,
Yeah, it's a safety issue.
If somebody gets in a car and, runs into a tree or something like that, it would definitely suck.
It'd mess you up. Yeah.
But the more you get used to it, the more you kind of get the visual cues.
You can tell.
Yeah, and it's always one of the hardest conversations to tell a grown person that they can't have any more alcohol in front of their friends.
Yeah.
It's never a good thing. So, if you're lucky enough to have a bouncer or a really big manager behind
have
you.
Have somebody else map the conversation.
I'm not a big guy, so I've never had a lot of luck with this. But usually, you just get some backup or somebody that is very diplomatic, and they can diffuse the situation pretty well.
Designated cutoff person.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, this might be why many places require a special sort of certification or training to be able to serve alcohol, because you need to know the cues to look for so that you're not serving folks who are way, way, way too drunk.
Yeah. Now, this one kind of is common sense, but I didn't really think about it, and that is, it's actually against the law to carry a flask.
In public, yeah. And I wasn't thinking about this either, because you think of a flask, like the whole purpose of a flask is to
carry booze
on you without being noticed, which actually, this reminds me, I'm going to include a picture of Chris in a store recently where we found a flask that was probably what? A gallon? 2 gallons?
Probably. It's huge.
I'm definitely including that picture, folks. You're going to love it. It was like $45, though, so we didn't buy it.
It's huge, yeah.
It would not be easy to hide. But flasks are open containers, so I hate to break it to you. You can't carry them around. It's breaking all open container laws. Now, again, this depends on the open container laws of your own state, but typically it is not allowed on your person or in the passenger compartment of a car. So, hate to break it to you.
Yeah.
This includes baseball games. I know what you all are thinking out there. Football games, too.
No.
That's public.
That's never going to happen. Are you kidding me? Who does that? That's weird. Now, what about, relocating alcohol in a car, then?
This is something I definitely have wondered about, because there's definitely some gray area, right? And so it seems like, and this is, again, I did some research here, but there was a little bit of gray area, so definitely look into your own state. But it seems like, for the most part, if your alcohol is in the trunk, it can be open, you're totally fine.
What if you don't have a trunk?
That's a good question. And that's part of where the gray area comes in. So it seems as though the key is definitely being out of, or in California at least, out of reach of the driver. There's a broad spectrum again across the states. Some states, it's okay for folks in the back seat to have alcohol. It's okay for alcohol to be in the back seat, open, I should say. In some states, it's okay for them to be drinking. In a couple states, it was okay for the person shotgun to be drinking. In one state, it was okay for you to have frozen daiquiri in I don't know what you call them, like a gas
sippy
station cup with the top on, as long as there's no straw. That's important. No straw. Yeah. Now, this is my favorite one, though. And I'm absolutely shocked to say this, but in the state of Mississippi, there appears to be no law against drinking alcohol while driving.
And we don't recommend that. Let's just go ahead and call that out right now.
Now, the huge caveat here, which is the driver's blood alcohol content has to stay below the legal limit. Like, you can't just drunk drive. But this blew me away. I cannot believe it's legal to do this in Mississippi.
Crazy.
But I confirmed this from several different websites because I didn't believe it.
So you went to what was the website?
OpenContainerLaws.com.
Yeah, that's
Talk about
craziness.
a specific website name. I love that.
Not only that, but why would you want to do that?
I know.
mean, can you imagine like rolling down a freeway and passing a cop and it's just like a huge flag. It's like, why would you even bother doing that? So don't recommend that approach personally.
Yeah, and again, this is just about kind of common sense, really. I think that if you get pulled over, do you really want the cop to be, do you want there to be any question on whether you're doing something silly or not? I don't think so. So be careful. Keep open alcohol way in the back. We usually just put it as far away as we can.
Right. And definitely don't recommend having anything in your system and driving. It's just not even worth the risk. So,
absolutely not.
Yeah, definitely not something we recommend.
And actually, that reminds me, there was one more thing, and that is, and this is worldwide. Many countries are far more strict than the U.S. about this, and that is advertising alcohol. There's the U.S. is actually relatively lax about this, and if I'm not mistaken, the laws are fairly limited. Most of the rules, quote unquote, that you see are industry association rules. They're not actually the law in the U.S. at least, but internationally, there are some very strict laws about advertising alcohol. So if you were to put like a sandwich board outside your bar advertising a beer special, you could be in trouble. So definitely look into that in your own country, because that's considered a public billboard and you could be at risk of breaking the law there. Which kind of makes sense because kids could be walking by, and a lot of places have very heavy restrictions on advertising to children.
So when we were doing our research on this particular subject, we came across a couple of antiquated laws that are they made us laugh. I mean, they're so funny. So I'm just going to share two with you before we leave.
Just two?
Just two. I feel like anymore. And we'll post all of them on the website that we found.
Let's do it.
So the first one was, in Scotland, a drunk man cannot be in possession of a cow.
So my question for you here is, does a drunk man have to sell the cow he previously owned, or you're not able to acquire a cow, or...
I don't know. The imagination really kind of runs wild on this one.
And where did this law start?
Right.
I don't think I want to know.
So grievous. They had to make a law around it. And who was the guy?
Who was that guy?
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy.
Nobody wants to be that guy. Now that reminds me, in Fairbanks, Alaska, it's illegal to give whiskey to a moose.
A moose?
Yep.
Why?
Have you seen how big they are? I don't think it's a good idea to get them drunk.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's only whiskey or if that's all alcoholic beverages.
Maybe whiskey's like their fighting spirit. Like mooses get crazy drunk on whiskey and they just want to fight everybody.
Mooses?
Meese?
Meese?
Mice? Moose?
Moosin? I have no idea what the plural of moose is. Anyway. Yeah. And I have to say this too. In Ohio, it's illegal to get your fish drunk.
Oh, no.
So
how does that even happen?
I'm assuming you're maybe it's something to do with pouring beer in streams or lakes.
Drunk? I mean,
I don't know. I can't even swim straight so right now.
Right.
Anyway, there's a little silly ending for you guys, but again, not to be a total downer, but be careful. There's a lot of laws about alcohol, and I think that in our business, whether you're an enthusiast or a bartender, you're dealing with alcohol a lot. So it's good to have an extra sort of layer of caution. And so hopefully this episode has been helpful. If you know about some crazy laws in your own state, definitely let us know in the comments over at mixologytalk.com/39. 39. I almost forgot what episode we were on.
All right, everybody. So we'll see you guys next week, and cheers.
Cheers. Never miss an episode by subscribing in iTunes or YouTube. And as always, check out the show notes by clicking on the right.